Hi, I'm David Jones. Welcome to my studio. Today I'm going to talk to you a bit about my imagery and the processes that I use to make that work possible. I'm always looking for kind of new ways to show my work and to bring meaning into the work. Um, Ambiguity is something that I really love. I don't want it to be like a picture of a rose or a rock or a car or an airplane. So I love ambiguity in my work. I think it adds, or hopefully it adds mystery and a sense of what's going on, and the viewer has to bring their own ideas and thoughts into that process of looking at work. A while ago, I was introduced to a process called Max. It's a computer program, and what I've done is I've modified and built my own image generator or projector, if you will. And what that does is it allows me to combine images in a random fashion so that when the images are projected, I really don't know what they're going to be until they appear. And then what I'll do is I will capture those images, in a sense, taking a photograph of the photograph. And I really like that. I really like that kind of ambiguity. Again, there's that word. Um, So what I do then is I take those images that I really respond to and pique my curiosity and take those into Photoshop. And then in Photoshop, what I do is I turn those images into separations, uh, into separate files, CMYK, and then and that CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and key or black. And then what I do is I take those images, take them to the Xerox shop and have Xeroxes made. And then I bring them into the studio and using a process that's very much akin to lithography. And lithography is based on the premise that water and grease don't mix, so the water and grease repel one another. So what I've done is instead of using a lithostone or a plate, I use Xerox, and the Xerox, which is a toner-based substance, rejects water but attracts the ink, and the paper, because it has gum arabic sprayed on it, repels the ink. And so I maintain that kind of water grease balance through the inking up process. Then what I do is I take those Xeroxes that are inked up and then run them through the etching press. So after I run the paper through the press, pre-stretching it, which I have to do, then what I do is I take my inked up Xerox, lay it on the sheet of damp paper, and then run it through the press. What happens is the ink that is on the Xerox is then transferred onto the dampened sheet of paper, um, leaving a impression of the inked up Xerox. Then what I do is I take magenta, yellow, and key or black and do the same thing. So I ink up all of the images, and then there's registration marks, which are very, very critical because the paper expands, contracts, stretches. So I have to try to control that, which sometimes works very well and other times not so much. So finally, when I have all of the images printed, I take those images and trim them down, dry them, trim them down, then place them onto canvas, mount them onto canvas, and hand color them, which I think is very important. I really like the hand in the work. So it's not just this mechanical activity. Again, process becomes very important to me, and the challenges that process bring. So while I'm doing this type of work, I'm also taking photographs and printing them out as black and whites, but using CMYK ink. So what I do is I get color shifts. I get this word ambiguity factors into my work, and it's something that I still find very intriguing. The images are photographs. So the images are prints of photographs that are created in a mechanical, computer-generated kind of device. So what I've done is I've continued to explore those kinds of intersections of imagery and making and creating things, building up these kinds of narratives, these false narratives, if you will. And this continues. Another thing that I'm very interested in is using a laser cutter, and recently was able to obtain a small laser cutter that will cut a surface of like 5 inches by 5 inches. So that's pretty small. I'd like to have something bigger, but that's big bucks. So what I've done is I've downloaded images um, and print on wood to be printed on paper, or to actually cut paper with light. And then I'm also using the laser to cut in poems through paper, um, which I find, again, I find the possibilities. This is really new. But then also, I've also, in terms of traditional work, drawing, lithography, printmaking are still things that I, will come back to again and again, because I think how can an artist limit themselves, especially if you are drawn to all these different ways of working, using contemporary and traditional source material, from the Bayeux Tapestry to images that I've sourced from the internet, allow me a kind of freedom to construct these images in ways that I find enjoyable. So source material becomes important, but drawing and embracing those kinds of images to make it into something that one loves. I think that's what's important.